Hello everyone, I'm Helen, the Crimson Cadaverous. I wanted to come on and make a video for the Virgo Full Moon, which is this Friday, and for the Spring Equinox, which is 2 days later on Sunday. If you've been paying attention, you probably noticed I haven't been making a lot of videos recently, and that's because I've been spending a lot of time with Pluto. Pluto has been very active this winter. He has met up with all of the personal planets. He's met up with the Sun, he's met up with Mercury, and he's met up with Venus and Mars several times. Whenever Pluto is active, it's a very, very transformative time. And Pluto's been touching a lot of my personal planets, so it's definitely been a very transformative time for me. Pluto is the great evolutionary. He wants us to be better. Even if we don't want better for ourselves, even if we want to sit in comfort, Pluto wants what's best for us. Very important thing to say about Pluto, if you have any kind of plutonic moments, it can be very jarring. It definitely pushes us to do things that we wouldn't necessarily do on our own. But again, Pluto wants what's best for us. So that's definitely something I want to point out that I've definitely learned over the last few months. But while I've been sitting with Pluto, I haven't really been in a very creative mood. Anything that I've kind of been creating has almost been like I've been creating something so that I could destroy it. Sounds a little weird, but that's kind of Pluto. So during that time, I just haven't really been making any videos. So hope you haven't missed it too much. I have been trying to keep up on my page with, some more information. If you feel the need to reach out to me about any of that, please do. But I'm back making some videos. Definitely wanted to talk about this Virgo full moon because, like I said, it's 2 days before the spring equinox. So it's almost like this is our spring cleaning moment. So obviously, the spring equinox is the beginning of spring. Some people don't know, though, that spring equinox is actually the beginning of the astrological year. So this is actually kind of like our New Year's. I know we're kind of accustomed to making New Year's resolutions around the first of the year, and that's fine. And actually, I'm going to tell you, if you have made those resolutions, you should definitely, not discount them. This is a perfect time to revisit them. But this is the beginning of the astrological year. This is the beginning of spring, when things are actually starting to grow again. We've had winter, which has kind of been all about hibernating, all about letting things die, which has been really interesting because it kind of has coincided with this activity from Pluto that we've had over the last 3 months. So he's really been kind of like driving home the idea of letting things die so that we can be reborn. But we're coming to that rebirth period with Aries season and the spring equinox. So he's really just been preparing us to really just be the best version of ourselves, because Pluto, like I said, does want what's best for us. Even if we want to sit in comfort, he's going to throw us into discomfort because it's going to make us who we need to be. So always want to mention that with Pluto. So with this Virgo full moon, it peaks on March 18th at 2:20 a.m. Central Time, so early in the morning. So depending upon what part of the country or part of the world you're in, it may actually occur on the 17th, late at night. So check that in your local listings. So the Virgo full moon is, of course, opposing the Pisces sun that we're experiencing right now. It's Pisces season. That's kind of how a full moon is created. The full moon is in the sign that opposes wherever the sun is at. So it's kind of like they're looking across at each other. They have opposing energies, but sometimes they can kind of work together. So the Virgo-Pisces axis is all about healing. So Virgo is about tangible things. It's about our daily routines. It's about work. It's about, what we're striving for. The Pisces energy is all about mysteries and mysticism and our dreams and intangible things. So Virgo is very, very tangible. Pisces is very intangible. So it may seem kind of counterintuitive that they're on the same axis with each other, but ultimately they're both about healing. So it definitely makes sense. Virgo's kind of about healing, the physical body, and Pisces is more about healing the spiritual body. So this gives us an opportunity to kind of check in with ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. So yeah, if there is any kind of health issues that come up at this time, this is kind of the time to examine those things and try and heal them. Also, anything that's kind of come up over winter that, we know kind of throws us off from our routine, isn't, allowing us to be the best version of ourselves, those things may come to light because the full moon has this ability to kind of reveal things, so it's the most light that you're going to get out of the moon. So it's basically like shining a bright light on whatever areas, that particular full moon sits in your chart. So you want to check and see where Virgo sits in your chart, specifically 27 degrees of Virgo, because that's where this full moon is. And that house could possibly be affected a little bit more than other parts of your life. So definitely look into that. So this Virgo full moon has a lot of things going on with it. Like I said, 2 days later, we have the spring equinox, which is the beginning of the astrological year. So we can definitely look at this Virgo full moon as cleanup time. It's time to make to-do lists about, what we know we need to, incorporate into our lives that we haven't been doing a good job of, that's our routines. But it's also a time to release things that aren't working for us, that aren't healthy for us. And what I really think this Virgo full moon is about, and we're going to talk about some of the other planetary alignments that kind of, call to this, is it's about releasing expectations and releasing perfectionism. So full moons are about release. Virgo has a tendency to be a perfectionist. And there tends to be some expectations attached to perfectionism. If we're expecting ourselves to be perfect, we have an expectation of what that looks like. Well, I think we all know, if we think rationally, there is nothing that is perfect. There's no possible way to be a perfect person. There's no possible way to do something perfectly. So the thing that, I'm sort of realizing with this idea of like releasing the perfectionism is it's actually going to allow us to live our lives the way we need to live our lives. Because it's so easy to get stuck on the expectation of what something is supposed to look like and decide, that has to be this perfect way. And if it's not that perfect way, you've either failed or there's no point in doing it in the first place. Well, what that ends up doing is that keeps us from doing things. So there's this quote that I heard, not too long ago about expectations. And it was that the only reason you're upset right now is because what you expected to happen didn't happen. So whenever we're upset about something, it is because things didn't turn out the way that we thought they were going to. We had this idea, in our mind of like, this is how it's going to be. Well, when it doesn't turn out that way, it's almost like, we've kind of set ourselves up for failure because now we're going to be upset about it. But the thing is, we don't need, if we don't have expectations for something, there's nothing we're going to get upset about. Like if we decide an evening is going to be a certain way, like we're going to go to A, B, and C different places, and it's going to feel like this, and then it doesn't, we're going to be upset. But if we say, I'm just going to go out this evening and see what happens, we don't have anything to be upset about because there was no idea of how it was expected to be. So I really do believe that this Virgo full moon is going to allow us to release just our expectations around being perfect and having everything be perfect, because I really do think that that actually holds us back. Because if we decide something's not going to be perfect and we go, oh, well, we can't do it, well, then we basically aren't going to do anything. So in a way, I kind of think that's why we've all been in a bit of a holding pattern recently. We've been letting Pluto transform us, whether we realize it or not. We've kind of just been dealing with all the craziness of the world. And as a way of controlling things, we've been putting ourselves into a situation where we feel like everything has to be a certain way. We have all these expectations, and then we're kind of upset when it's not, or we don't do anything at all. So again, this Virgo full moon kind of coming in to help us release that. So things that are kind of going with that, during that Virgo full moon, we're going to have a Grand Earth Trine. So that's going to be the Virgo full moon trining both Pluto and the North Node. So the North Node is our destiny, what we're supposed to be going towards. And Pluto, of course, is transformation, destruction, just changing things so that we can be reborn. So I really do feel like this Virgo full moon is going to have a lot of energy encouraging us to go towards what we really need to go towards, as opposed to sitting in the land of expectations. This Virgo full moon also has the sun sextiling Pluto. So trines and sextiles are both harmonious placements. So it's almost like in a very harmonious way, we're going to be pushed to change. We're going to be pushed to change our routines, pushed to change this paradigm that we sit in where we must have expectations, we must have everything perfect. And then the next day after the Virgo full moon, we see Venus, who's been transformed quite a bit by Pluto recently, since December, Venus squaring Uranus. So Uranus is the planet of upheaval. It's the awakener. It's the planet that basically wants us to reach a higher level of consciousness and kind of get out of the mundane, day-to-day things. So Venus is the planet of values, relationships, money, etc. So with Venus squaring Uranus, so that's a challenging aspect, it's almost like what we value is needing to change, or we're going to recognize that it needs to change. So again, all this change energy, pushing us to do differently. And then the next day after that, so the 20th, is the spring equinox. So it's a period of rebirth. So spring is that time when, the earth comes back alive. So in a way, like I said, the Virgo full moon is all about cleaning things out, pushing us to, transform, pushing us to transform how we see the world and how we see ourselves. And I really think that once we get to the point of, the spring equinox and Aries season, we're going to start seeing things a lot differently. We're going to see the areas in our life where we haven't been showing up for ourselves, which is an important thing to mention with Virgo, because Virgo, there's that self-care aspect to it, which I will mention. Self-care is not just about taking a bath and painting your toenails. Self-care is about showing up for ourselves, about doing the things that we know are right for ourselves, even if it's not really that exciting, even if it's not necessarily what we want to do in that exact moment. So keep that in mind with self-care, because there's definitely quite a bit of a self-care undertone to this full moon going into the Aries season, of course. So again, we've got a lot of things going on, and I really can't emphasize enough that I think that this full moon is about releasing expectations and releasing this need for perfectionism. So I want to pull a couple of cards before I get off, and see if there's anything. Well, at the very bottom of the deck is the Fool. The Fool is all about beginnings, starting a new journey. And I definitely feel like, not to put expectations on things, of course, but I definitely feel like there is an energy of rebirth and starting anew, no matter, what's going on astrologically if we're going through the spring equinox. So I definitely feel like, we are in a period where, we've transformed a lot. Oops, we may have a little bit of imposter syndrome because of that, and I think that's kind of challenged some things recently. But I definitely believe that this is the Virgo full moon is going to allow us to kind of sit with that and understand how the actions that we've been taking recently are either good or bad for ourselves. So I pulled the Temperance card. So the Temperance card, if you can see, 1 foot in the water, 1 foot on the ground. And the message behind that card, the temperance gets a bad rap because of the temperance movement, and we think that means ceasing something or stopping something or not having fun, basically. But temperance actually means taking a middle path, being patient, having middle ground. And that's why we have the water and the earth here. So the idea behind that is we are kind of finding a middle ground. So again, we've been transforming a lot. We've kind of been trying to be perfect. We have all these expectations. We've been trying to, get things a certain way. And there has to be kind of a pushback to that. There has to be something that kind of comes in and says, okay, it's not going to be perfect. It can't be perfect. Nothing is perfect. And that's okay. And I think when we get to a point where we recognize that things don't have to be perfect, we're actually going to realize that we're living in abundance and we haven't been recognizing it. So King of Oysters, he's the king of abundance. And a lot of times we think of abundance meaning wealth or possessions, but it's really anything tangible that we have. So the thing with that is sometimes recognizing that we're most abundant when we have the things that we need, not necessarily when we have everything. Because a lot of times things and people and things like that take up space in our lives. So if we're allowing all these things to take up space in our lives and they're not right for us, we actually are not living in a place of abundance. So with this Virgo full moon, we're doing all this spring cleaning, maybe spiritually and health-wise. We can do that in our physical world as well to kind of shift the energy into, a place of a clean slate, so to speak. So again, the thing with the King of Oysters and the thing with abundance is that we are most abundant when we have the things that we actually need in our lives. So keep that in mind when you're doing your spring cleaning. So I want to wish you all a very happy Virgo full moon. That's all I have for today. If you have any questions for me, please reach out to me. And I really want you to take the time to release your expectations, release perfectionism. No one's perfect. You're never going to be perfect. There's never going to be the perfect outcome to something. Don't let the perfectionism and the expectations keep you from living your life. So I want to thank you all for watching. And if you like the video, please like it. If you're watching on the YouTube, please subscribe. And let me know what you think about this full moon and how it turns out for you. But I hope you all have a wonderful day. Goodbye.